Hi guys, so this is tonight's homework. It's lesson 15, homework number 4. And I didn't have a copy of the homework with me, so I just wrote the problem out on paper. It says, Musa delivered 3/8 of the newspapers on his route in the first hour and 4/5 of the rest in the second hour. What fraction of the newspapers did Musa deliver in the second hour? So we're going to start by boxing in and underlining. So at this point, if you're just starting your homework, what I'd like you to do is pause it and try to box in and underline, then restart the video in a second after you've done that work so you can compare if you're boxing in and underlining what I'm boxing in and underlining. So I'm going to start by boxing in this idea that he delivered 3/8 of the newspapers in the first hour. So 3/8 of the newspapers in the first hour. Those kind of go together there. 4/5 of the rest get delivered in the second hour. So that goes together as well there. Question, what fraction of the newspapers did Musa deliver in the second hour? Now, it's what fraction of the newspapers. So it's like what fraction of all the newspapers, and we want to know the second hour, what fraction of all the newspapers he delivered in the second hour. So for an answer statement, we can say Musa, and hopefully I'm saying that name right. I have no idea really how you pronounce it. Musa delivered blank of the newspapers in the second hour. Now remember, your answer statement wants to match the question as closely as possible. The question is, what fraction of the newspapers did Musa deliver in the second hour? Musa delivered blank of the newspapers in the second hour. So you want to stay really close with your answer statement to how the question is worded there. So let's start by drawing a tape diagram for this. Now our tape diagram is going to represent all the newspapers that Musa is supposed to deliver. So here it's one whole in that, like one whole amount, and the amount is all the newspapers. We don't know the exact number of newspapers. That's why our whole is just one whole amount, and it represents all the newspapers because we don't know exactly how many we have. So we go back to the first sentence here. Musa delivered 3/8 of the newspapers on his route in the first hour. So I'm going to stop there for a second. I'm going to put a roadblock in. 3/8 of the newspapers were delivered in the first hour. So I look at that 3/8, and that shows me that I'm going to split my entire tape into 8 equal parts. I'm going to start by cutting it in half, then cutting my halves in half to make fourths, then cutting my fourths in half to make eighths. And last but not least, I want to double count this to make sure I have 8 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. So we want to show that 3/8 of the newspapers were delivered in the first hour. So I can do that by shading in 3/8, bracketing it and labeling it 3/8, and I'm going to put in parentheses first hour. So then I have what was delivered in the first hour, and I have these blank boxes. I can check off that information, but now we're to this point here right after my first roadblock, which says 4/5 of the rest in the second hour. So the rest is what hasn't been delivered yet. So I'm just going to grab this with a bracket, these white unshaded parts, and I'm going to label that rest. And now the fraction that shows here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 8 total pieces are 5/8. So the rest is 5/8. Now it says he's going to deliver 4/5 of the rest in the second hour. Well, if I cover up what he's already delivered and just look at the rest, it says 4/5 of the rest. If you look at the rest, we notice that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal groups there. So if they're saying 4/5 of the rest, that's going to be 4 of the 5 pieces. So I'm just going to come over here on this end and start to double shade in those ones just to make it shaded a little different. Okay, so that we can see the ones that are double shaded are 4/5 of the rest. And that's going to be the second hour amount. So the second hour, he delivers 4/5 of the rest. The rest was 5/8. So the math to show for this would be 4/5 of the rest, 4/5 of the 5/8. Okay. Now, I can multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom, or I can solve this by finding common factors. I'll show you both ways. So if I multiply across the top, I get 20. Multiply across the bottom, I get 40. And I know 20 is half of 40. So I know that's equal to 1/2. Now, the way I got 1/2 was essentially by saying 20 divided by 20 is 1. If I divide by 20 on the top, I divide by 20 on the bottom, and 40 divided by 20 is 2, because 2 times 20 is 40. Now, we practiced today in class the idea of looking for common factors and reducing before multiplying. So I'm noticing here that we have a 5 and a 5. So I can simplify that by dividing by 5 here, because I can also divide by 5 here. When I do 5 divided by 5, that becomes 1. 5 divided by 5, that becomes 1. I also noticed that the 4 and the 8 are related, because I know that 4 is a factor of 8. So I can do 4 divided by 4 on the top, because I can also do 8 divided by 4 on the bottom. So this cancels out. 4 divided by 4 equals 1, and 8 divided by 4 equals 2. So this ends up being 1 times 1 on the top over 1 times 2 on the bottom. And we can multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom, and see that's 1/2. Now, another place where we can see that 1/2 is when I uncover this part of the tape diagram. So we talked about how 4/5 of the rest were delivered in the second hour. So this part here, these 4 out of 5 pieces there, I can just grab those double shaded pieces, and I'm going to label that second hour. Okay, so that was 4 out of 5, 4/5 of the rest. But when I uncover what was delivered in the first hour, we see that the fraction that's double shaded here is 4 pieces out of 8 total pieces. And we know that 4/8 equals 1/2. 4 is half of 8. We can divide by 4 on the top, divide by 4 on the bottom to simplify 4/8 to be 1/2, which was the answer we got. So Musa delivered half of all the newspapers in the second hour. Okay, good luck on your homework, guys. Hope this makes sense, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye.